So first of all, welcome to the show. Happy to have you on. And pretty much the first question I have for you is how and where did you find wrestling, and in what way would you say it's impacted your life?
Yeah, so I found wrestling actually. I was probably in kindergarten, first grade, that years like when you just start picking up sports all the time. And I was playing like
Mhm.
baseball. Um, and I just wanted to start doing other sports. Like you see it on TV, so I wanted to do basketball. And really I was trying to push my mom to get me into basketball. We had like a little elementary school team that I was trying to be a part of, but I had asthma at the time. And my mom would not let me do basketball, which was learning down like wrestling is harder, but she like signed me up for wrestling. It was basically his name was Bill Kennedy. He played football with my dad in college. And he was still living in Murfreesboro at the time, and started this club out in Murfreesboro. We were called the Sheriff Sharpshooters and everything, and yeah, just kind of like started going to practice. Started getting, I guess, decent at it. Stuck with it. um, Obviously still a part of my life today. And it's affected my life in many ways. I think more so with the individual aspect
Mhm.
and what it teaches you. It's hard. Like my first years wrestling, my first years in college were not glorious, I'll say. A lot of beatings. But it taught me to stay diligent, keep my mind, focused on the task at hand. You're not going to feel good, right? And just adversity, right? And just how you deal with yourself. You learn a lot about yourself in the sport. um
Absolutely.
I've kind of been in situations in college too where it's just like, um I wouldn't have a good week or a good few days at practice where I'd literally like just go sit on the treadmill, sprint like to where I could feel something and then just cry it out and be like, all right,
Mhm.
let's show up for the next day. Ended up like that's when I wrestled my best, whenever I would have like my worst practices. So just like putting in the work, um, and just like the adversity thing, man, it just teaches you how to look at yourself and how to deal with your demons, good or bad, and just move forward and kind of focus on the task at hand.
And I agree with you a lot with the adversity side of things. And you mentioned how you have some of a bad week or a bad practice, and I think it's always something that could be said, and it's always something that will remain a relevant point. Is that especially in the sport, you truly find out who you are when you have those low moments in practice or that bad week where you're like, hey, I was doing this week. How can I turn it around? This week and
Absolutely.
going forward, especially in a like a tight knit scene like the college scene or um, prep school, international scene, whichever it may be.
Absolutely.
Now, kind of staying on that topic of your prep career and talking about that, let's chat about your prep career at Riverdale High School. Over there, you're from Murfreesboro, undefeated state champ under Sean Jones. What was that prep career like, and what's the story there?
Yeah, it was actually kind of interesting. Going back, I had Coach Bill as my coach growing up, and basically everybody that was a part of my club went to this school called Blackman High School. I'm sure you've
Mhm.
heard of it. But they were at the time they were kind of like the powerhouse with wrestling. So I was kind of like put in some tough decisions or tough positions to make a tough decision with where I wanted to go to high school. And I ultimately like ended up choosing Riverdale, with football being a big focus. And that's kind of like, going into my choice of college, um, of where I wanted to go and everything too. But anyways, like I made that my choice, and wrestling really wasn't my primary reasoning for going. I wanted to play football. And we had this coach, his name was Paul Vaughn. He actually wrestled at Oklahoma State. He was a really good guy. But I was on the team with a bunch of older guys. I just didn't know my role. Like wrestling was just kind of something to supplement football. Um, and I just kind of like went in there, giving my best. I started to beat like the good guys right away, and there's that transition of when you're a middle school kid to, you're wrestling 18-year-old, almost men,
Mhm.
right? Some classify them as men. So there was an adjustment period there, but I also like knew that I had skills and I was athletic enough and big enough that I could handle my own. So that's what kind of like got me through my first year. I ended up placing sixth at state,
Wow.
which sort of surprised me because I just kind of went in there. I lost my first round. And back then at the Tennessee State tournament too, when you lost, the guy that beat you, if he kept winning, he would pull you back into the tournament.
You follow
So
your
he kept
name.
winning. Yep. He won. He pulled me back into the tournament. And like I was just kind of like, like this young, 14-year-old kid, like wrestling against these guys. I was intimidated. I was a big guy too. So I'm wrestling against all these guys that I had like heard about growing up, coming up through the scene. And it was just nerve-wracking, but I just kind of went out there and like won each match. I took it one match at a time, 1 point at a time, and I ended up doing really well, getting six. And then my last match of that tournament, actually my freshman year, I wrestled the guy that beat me and put me into like the losers bracket and everything. And I was winning the whole match. And then the last couple seconds, I was winning the match, right? I didn't have to do this. And they still give me crap to this day. But he shot in and I jacked him up and I tried to throw him and he put me on my back and won the match. So I was already placed in that state. It was like the 5th, 6th place match. So at that point, like I don't know. I was already placed and I was happy. So, whatever. But then, going into my sophomore year, obviously I had a lot of confidence in myself. It was me and Cody Davis, I think, was the guy that was, competing for the state title, or I guess the favorites. We went the whole match. I think during that time too, I was 215 half the year. And then the other half I went 195. But that was just because we went really deep in playoffs and I just didn't feel like losing the weight just yet. But it was fun. I had a good time. That was actually my worst year at state. I was ranked second. We had a tough region. There was this guy named Blake Biggs. He had quads that were like literally the size of like 3 football stuff together. Like they were huge. And like that was like the match of the region tournament. I get to state tournament and I just kind of like crap the bed. I wrestled this guy from Cleveland, who I think, in my opinion, I was a better wrestler than. He showed up and beat me that day, like fair and square, and like just wasn't emotionally strong enough at that point yet to where I had to come back and wrestle that guy that I wrestled in the region finals. He beat me right after that. So then after that, I think I was like 1-2 my sophomore year, right? And I don't know. It was just a weird year for me. I don't know what was really going on. It was a tough weight class, but whatever. Next year, we get Coach Jones, and I get one of my good partners, Bill Kennedy's son, actually ended up going to Riverdale somehow, some way.
Okay.
So Coach Jones takes over the program, and I have Sean as my partner. And like, Sean was not a nice guy. So we would just get in fights a lot of the practices, and like he would slap me, I would slap him, I'd punch him, and all this kind of stuff. But like I would say, like as far as wrestling, that's where I probably had the most fun, and then I also probably grew the most in my wrestling, just because I had somebody there to push me really hard, who was really knew what they were doing in a sense. And I ended up making the state finals that year. I lose to the guy I was supposed to wrestle the year before. I think I placed at a few national tournaments in like Dixie duels and stuff. That was a good time. And then my senior year, it was, I don't know, I just felt like all the competition had left that I had like really looked forward to and just competed with all 3 years and stuff. I wrestled a really worthy opponent in my finals match. But other than that, like I just felt like it was kind of down. And yeah, I always say too, like leading up to that process, I had a lot going on. I wanted to play football, as you could probably tell. But I was 5'9" at the time. I didn't grow up, and I wanted to play middle linebacker. So a lot of people weren't recruiting 5'9" middle linebackers at the time. So I had to like come to the realization in the hard conversations with myself of, realizing like, hey, football might not be for you. And I always thought football was more fun. I was just better at wrestling and I was just more naturally gifted there. But that was a tough decision I ended up coming to. Was all right, like I got an offer for Chat to be a preferred walk-on there. And then I also got a scholarship to wrestle at Chat. So I obviously ended up taking that. And I got like a little bit more money after I skipped spring break to go compete at senior nationals, to really kind of like, I guess, sort of cement my decision in that. And
Right.
it ended up being right at All American. Got a little bit more money out of it, and ended up, I mean, obviously it's working out fine for me. So
Now, when coming up through your prep career, you mentioned that there was still a great focus and great liking for football, and wrestling was just a substitute for that. When would you say was like the year or the time frame where um, you like looked at wrestling and you're like, this could go a lot farther than I originally thought it could.
it was my senior year, definitely. Especially when I started really doing well, and it was kind of junior year. I did a few of those national tournaments where I wasn't getting the football looks that I had wanted. But also like I competed at like a few of like Dixie Duels was one of the big tournaments that like I did really well at. And I just like it was very raw at wrestling. In the sense of like these guys wrestle year round and I'm just getting matches in the summertime to just kind of like stay in shape. But I would say like towards the end of my junior year, when I started beating those good guys, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm actually like pretty good at this. And I'm not getting the offers that I want in football, but like there's way more people talking to me in wrestling. And like in the back of my mind, I think that I knew I was going to be a wrestler, but just football was more fun. And obviously, like
Right.
there's more football and glam in that. And I think I was too young to kind of understand the concept of putting your foot down and really focusing on that. And like my football coaches were awesome. They were really supportive of my wrestling career. Anytime I wanted to go out and do a special trip, they would allow it. Um, we like as a team, we weren't that good. So I didn't really kind of have the influence, I guess, that I'm seeing with some of these schools and that they have now.
Mhm.
Uh, but I mean, ultimately, like junior and then senior year for sure. Like I had like a little bit of hope left, but then after my senior year, we made the quarters, and then I still didn't have any offers. I'm like, okay, yeah, we got to go wrestling.
Well, I think definitely you mentioned the glory and kind of glam that's with football. And it's an interesting point that I look at a lot, and Joe Rogan mentioned it, and I think this is one thing that adds to how unique and how tough wrestlers are, is when you really look at it, and I think you have to more so look at it in the materialistic sense. There's really not any glory in it. It's
Yeah,
a very unique type of sport in many ways, but especially in the sense that like the glory and the fame through it, there's so much behind the scenes that has to go into it to be the guy who's at the top of the podium, signing the autographs, getting the interviews, all that type of stuff.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, to add on that, like I when I was at Cornell, I got to see some of the best wrestlers, and like the work that they put in, the focus, the hours is just ridiculous, and like it's just a self-fulfilling thing.
Hmm.
Uh, I think the work that you put into it. I mean, and at most college opens, when you go to them, when you win, you get like a nice pat on the back, and your name is like on the bracket online. And it's like, good job. So I would say very rarely did we ever like. I think I got an axe when we went to Army tournament, and then the scuffle, I got like a little plaque. But other than that, like at college opens, you're like, all right, good job.
The little,
Be safe getting home. Yeah.
the little scuffle plaque. Have you seen the recent ones?
No, I haven't.
Like they might be the same design. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I think I get what you mean by the little scuffle plaques. Still
Yep.
a
Yep.
really good tournament, honestly. It's always fun to watch.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's
But
like it's a very big power 12 tournament right now. I mean, still gonna get good wrestling.
oh yeah, no, and I think especially for the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, it's
Mm-hmm.
so beneficial to have a town that has a D1 program in it, and have a team like that. And it's especially beneficial just for the exposure to have a tournament like that, because before it was Scuffle was Southern Open,
Mm-hmm.
and the Scuffle I think started more so um, on the like North Carolina, South Carolina region, but I could be wrong about that.
It was in Greensboro actually, where Super 32 was this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I feel
Yep.
like I remember reading that somewhere. But it's just great exposure, I think, to see that type of talent. Like when you look at who's all come through the tournament, especially in the
For
past
sure.
decade.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, looking back on my iPad, I had pictures with like David Taylor, Jordan Oliver, Kale. I mean, back then, like, I just thought it was so crazy that we had that much talent coming into Chattanooga and
Mhm.
Tennessee, right? And wrestling in our tournament. And I was just like, I mean, it was an hour and a half drive on New Year's Eve. Bless my mom's heart for bringing me down there, but I was just like, I had to be there. Like, these are the best wrestlers in the country. And back then, like, that was a NCAA tournament. Like, you're wrestling against Mizzou,
Mhm.
Minnesota, Cornell, Penn State, Oklahoma State. Like, back then, it was the real deal.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And also, I think the crazy part about it too, like you mentioned, you never know who you're going to run into.
Mm-hmm.
Like this past year when I was watching, I was sitting. It was during an intermission, like right before the medal rounds, the finals, and I'm sitting there and I'm talking with like Jeff Ruffalo, Mike Kraft, Feldhacker, and I look behind me and John Smith's walking down the stairs. And like this is somebody you see all the time, for the NCAA championships. And I'm like, yeah, I'm getting a picture with that guy. Like I'm
Yeah,
doing
absolutely.
that while I have the opportunity. Uh,
Absolutely.
but that's part of the reason it's just such a cool tournament, in my opinion.
Yep. Yep.
And
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
oh, sorry about that. Speaking of UTC, kind of staying on that topic of finishing out your prep career. So after you finish out your prep career, you made the move to UTC. I know we kind of touched on that scholarship and the senior nationals, but ultimately, what made you pick UTC as the place where you wanted to continue your academic and athletic career?
Um, if you've ever been to Chattanooga, it's really easy to like the town kind of sells itself. Coach Esslinger brought me in on a duel. Um, and at the time, like Nico was wrestling, who was my coach there in college, for 3 years, 4 years actually. And like I didn't really do like a unofficial official visit. I just kind of like went there, talked with Coach Esslinger, watched the duel. But at the time, we had a bunch of Tennessee guys from Franklin. We had like John Schrader,
Mhm.
um, Austin. What was his name? He was from Franklin as well. And we had like a good, I guess, representation of Tennessee already kind of there. So it was like an easy move for me. It was 2 hours away, Division 1, and I saw an opportunity where I could kind of start right away as well too with the scholarship. It just made sense. And Chattanooga, I mean, I think what really sold me on the fact was I kind of knew at the time that all right, wrestling was going to be it. And at the time, I had gotten letters from like Virginia, Columbia, um, and I really taken business to those schools, but they were high academic. Um, and I knew like, I mean, at the time in high school, we weren't the best. But I knew that like if I wanted to go home on the weekends, I could go home.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, like you were saying, having a Division 1 school in our backyard, I could really grow. So that was kind of the big sell there. And then I got really close to Nico after I graduated. And he kind of like took me under his wing. And really just sold me on the idea of, being an All-American in Chattanooga, right? Being there,
Right.
and all that kind of fun stuff. And I mean, I did see myself. I was very, very raw, but I was so raw in the fact that I was be like, dude, yeah, I'm just gonna take him down and like beat everybody. The easy. I didn't think it was gonna be easy by any means. But I did feel like at Chattanooga I could get what I needed to like get done.
Well, I think you really make a good point about it's a place to really learn and grow, as any university is. But you look back through the years and still now, there's a lot of great wrestlers that have come through there.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the like Nico Brown, you look at the Charlie Buckshaws, the even the early guys like Turner Jackson, Randy Batten, Josh Lambert was there for a little bit before he transferred, and that was
Yep.
somebody that went on to be in the finals, and it just shows you how tough that D1 scene can be, and how tough college wrestling in general can be.
Yep.
But it shows there's still a lot of great minds in that program.
Absolutely.
Now, kind of sticking on to the UTC topic. At first, when you were making the switch over, what was it like adjusting to that college room and environment?
It was rough, dude. I'm gonna tell you right now. I got my first cauliflower like during camp, and that was whenever I like first got my butt beat. I'll say it like that. Um, that was the first time I had done a go like over 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And I just kind of like blew my load way too early wrestling some guys and was literally just fighting for survival at some points. And then it was just like, all right, that sucked. Like it was just humbling at the very beginning. You hear about it all the time, but you literally get your butt beat to the point where it's just like, I don't even like you get to the point where like I'm not even good at wrestling. Like you question whether like you made the right choice. And during those summer camps, like I was wrestling Nico, I was wrestling Jared, Clay even at the time, and I just got whooped by everybody. I think like I would get a takedown every once in a while, but like I would pay for it.
Mhm.
And it's just in the college room, the guys aren't nice. Like you get taken down, it's like if they don't like you, it's fight time. Like you either fight or like you kind of go down. So kind of I actually had a really good coach at the time. His name was Mark Ellis. And for whatever reason, he believed in me. So as like practices and everything went on, he kind of like took me under his wing and like we would just get better at like something small like every week, right? And just that progression and that like growth mindset really helped me grow into that. And like I still didn't think I was really good. And me and Jared Johnson were competing for the spot at 97 at the time because Nico had graduated. So obviously he was older than me, so they were going with Jared first at the time. And when it came to like our first tournament, I think that I didn't know that I was like I just wasn't sure, right, where I stand because I'm still like barely getting takedowns in the room. I'm not even beating a freshman. I can barely take somebody down in our room. So like I get to the tournament, I'm like, all right, whatever. I wrestled two matches. So there was a freshman sophomore division. It was the Virginia Tech Hokie Open.
Yep.
Freshman sophomore division, and then like an open like team duel going in on the other side. So they're dueling and I'm doing the freshman sophomore tournament. I wrestled my first two matches and like I'm actually like beating these guys pretty bad. I'm just like I'm so tired and I'm just so scared that like, hey, I'm just gonna go out there and ball out, score a bunch of points, see what happens. Ended up winning those two matches. Jared was wrestling in the duel to represent the team, and he actually like tweaked his knee and got hurt. So during that, Jared gets hurt. They pull me from the tournament, and then I have to wrestle this guy who was a national qualifier, my very first match ever in college. And like right off the rip, I was kind of like rolling anyway. I just shot. I just kept shooting. I just didn't know what to do. Like I was like a Big 12 football, like all offense, no defense at all. So I just kept shooting, and I actually like was scoring. And I was just like, hey, like I'm like back to my football roots. I was like, I don't think like he's standing still. I can just tackle him and I'll get 2 points for that kind of thing. So that was my mindset. I grew. I took that. I ended up losing the match, but it was a battle. And like I'm just emotional after the match. And Coach Esslinger and Coach Cerritos are coming up to me like, that guy was really good. Like you wrestled your ass off. Like that was really, really nice to see. And they were proud of my effort versus my outcome. And then that's when I started to like, okay, like I kind of belong here with these guys. Started getting a little bit confident and like I start wrestling more matches. Jared was hurt, obviously, and I'm like having good matches with good guys that in my mind, like I don't know they're good. I don't know anybody. Like I know Jaden Cox at my weight, and I know who was the guy? Nick Heflin was like the top two guys. Everybody else, I was just like, all right, whatever, like let's go.
Well, I think especially for college wrestling and just wrestling in general, you have to have that mentality like you'll take on anybody,
Yeah.
because it really is a sport. Like, here's the glory, or here's part of one of the glorious things about it. Say football, for an example, you get down 25, 25 some points, it's going to be hard to come back ultimately.
Yeah.
But wrestling, you could be down 14 points, there'd be a minute left in the match, and then it could be over.
Yep.
And the guy that's winning by 14 could be the one that gets pinned. and
Yep.
that just shows how really anybody can be beat. And even the greats, suffered defeat at one point or another. And it just
Mhm.
shows how the sport's so inconsistent in that way. And
Yep.
that's one of the things that makes it really fun.
Yep. You get guys like Keyshawn Clark come out of nowhere and make NCAA finals when it's just like, who is this guy? Like most of the time, like 2 weeks before, you're like, all those guys barely like placing at the well, I guess he did really well at the ACC tournament, but there was a tournament before. Literally, we had when I was at Cornell, I was coaching their prep school. We had a guy have a 1 point match with him, have the chance to beat him. And then what, like 3, 4 weeks later after that, he's making the national finals. And you're just like, I mean, where did this guy come from? Like, respect to him and respect to everybody in the sport that does it. Like, you put in all that work to give yourself the best chance possible.
Hmm.
No guarantees that you're going to win ever. You could be the best wrestler in the world. And like you said, Dan Gable, greatest college wrestler of all time, arguably, him and KO, undefeated, loses the last match of his career just because he's just nervous about that last match, right? It can
Hmm.
get to you.
Kale, I mean, loses in his redshirt year. He's wrestling unattached. I didn't know that till the other day. Actually, that was a new bit of information on me.
Oh, he lost his redshirt year.
Yeah, he was like wrestling unattached, so it technically didn't count. I can't remember who it was, but I know that I think Kale's first year out as a starter, he got revenge on the guy. Like it was pretty bad.
Yeah,
There's a video I think Stalemates did that looks into like that whole story.
that's pretty
Um,
cool.
that would be an interesting one to watch because that
Yeah,
was
for
an
sure.
interesting story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you mentioned Keyshawn Clark, and that's a great example. I mean, he went in on wild card for the
Yeah,
tournament. I mean, I
yeah.
actually think I could be wrong, but I think he went 0-2 at the ACC.
That's what I was saying. I can't remember exactly, but I knew that like it was a barely qualifying event for him. And yeah, I mean that just goes to show you like because our guy like literally he had a good beginning of the year, was ranked. He beat a couple of guys, but then we saw him at the Edinburgh Open in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania, right? It's kind of like in the middle of nowhere. He was just going to get matches, but like ended up our guy like almost beat him, right? Not a good look if you were him like trying to make a argument for yourself to go to nationals. He ends up showing up, and I think he has like a really hard route to the finals and makes the finals and has a good little flirt with Nick Lee and
Hmm.
almost comes out on top.
Oh yeah, no, I mean just all around like that's a moment that despite the loss, like you can always look back on that weekend and
Absolutely.
well, I made the run through Ironman, and then pushed Nick Lee and like it was really, really despite the loss, a Cinderella story, like Daniel
Yep.
Cormier said, and it was a fun match to watch too.
Absolutely.
But so all in all, kind of wrapping up and getting into the last question. After everything, prep career, college career, and then still continuing your coaching career, all in all, what does wrestling mean to you?
Oh, see, yeah, that's a good question. Wrestling is I wouldn't say like I find my identity in wrestling, but it's definitely made me the person that I am. The wins, the losses, the behind the scenes, that nobody gets to see. And that's honestly probably where I grew the most was those behind the scenes where nobody gets to see or kind of tell you what to do. Like at the end of the day, like I had to talk myself into getting back up. I have to talk myself into showing back up, right? My first year was tough, getting beat, and then our preseason, like just running. I was just like, oh my God, like I don't know that this is for me. We ran so much, and I had not done it up to that point. And then just not having the practices that I wanted. Um, I would say like it was the setbacks in wrestling
Mm,
uh, that kind of formed me. Um, and wouldn't say I overcome every single one, but I think I did a good job of doing my best, right? And I think that's with wrestling too. Like people get frustrated, um, and that's how you can look at life. Like everybody wants these answers to life, like it's just going to be given to you. Like no, it's a
mm,
journey every day. You got to take every day, every moment as it is, and just make it your best. For example, I have this one kid. He's not a kid. He's cadet here at the academy. He's Iowa State champ, really good wrestler. So he's just getting frustrated. Like he can't get to like somebody's legs, for example.
Mhm.
Like same frustrations that I was having my freshman year in college, right? And I was just like, hey, like this isn't art. Like take it a day at a time. We got to get better and better. If this was like easy, everybody would be doing it, and everybody would
Absolutely.
be 4-time national champions,
Mhm.
right? This is a journey. You're gonna get stuck on a journey. You're gonna go a wrong way on your journey. You're gonna go. You're gonna stumble. You're gonna take back steps, right? How are you gonna respond to that? Um, and these are just the lessons that I could go on and on and on about this, but it's the mental game and what it teaches you. It doesn't teach you like I would say the act of wrestling has taught me very little about myself. It's these deeper subliminal things that
Mhm.
have really stuck out and really gone with me and will go with me for the rest of my life. So
Oh, absolutely. It's the hidden meanings, the stuff that's not mentioned in the, parent meeting or the team meeting. It's stuff that you got to find along the way.
yep,
And
yep.
you mentioned the lessons that go along with it, and it reminds me of a great quote, and it's undoubtedly my favorite quote, and it's there's no losses, only lessons.
Yep. Amen to that.
And there's an endless truth to that statement because especially in wrestling where you're going through adversity on a Tuesday, a Thursday, every day at practice, tournament on the weekend, college, you're cutting the weight, studying, making up classes. On Tuesday, you're going to Vegas, going
Yeah,
to a tournament on the weekend, coming back, cutting weight on your own. It's all such a grind, but the benefits of it exceed far past the time on the mat.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, like you were saying, man, like I really didn't even mention weight cutting because like, you just kind of that's the dark part of wrestling that nobody really wants to talk about. But you go to some dark places, especially when you're cutting weight. Um, and like the discipline, like it's not even like you're hungry anymore. You're just thirsty and like, God, I can't drink this water because it's gonna put another pound on me. Now I got to go work out another hour to get this pound off, right? And yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing if you really dive into this sport and do it the right way. It'll turn anybody, and like you won't be complaining about some of these first world problems that we're
Mhm.
having right now. Like there's real stuff to be dealing with, especially in
Okay,
the college wrestling room for sure. So
absolutely. Well, I appreciate you for hopping on and talking with me about your career and everything. I really appreciate it. It's great to get to chat about a sport, and it's great to have this opportunity once again. And best of luck to you and the Air Force, and especially in y'all's season that's just now started. And competition's right around the corner. So best of luck to y'all.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for having me on. And good luck to you with your future podcast. And hopefully we'll get together again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Thanks, buddy.
Take care.